let's start with the pancreas now. You can see from my picture here that it lies deep to the greater curvature of the stomach. There's the greater curvature of the stomach. Remember, here's the lesser curvature linking up to the liver. So here's the greater curvature, and right underneath it, right there, there's your pancreas. Okay. If you look at this, it has a head and a tail. The head is actually encircled by the duodenum, and this picture doesn't do a good job showing that, but it does. And then the tail then abuts up against the spleen, and you barely start to make out the spleen right there underneath the stomach. Okay, so now when it comes to your pancreas, you have both exocrine and endocrine functions. So when it comes to the exocrine function, your pancreas is going to secrete pancreatic juices, which break down all categories of foodstuff. So your carbohydrates, the proteins, the lipids, and the nucleic acids. Let me change slides. There we go. We have what are called Astner cells. And these are the ones that contain these granules. There's the zymogen granules. Is those granules, that's where you find the digestive enzymes. Okay, and so as far as those digestive enzymes go, things like pancreatic amylase, you know, before we had amylase, that's the one that was in saliva, and that one's the one that breaks down starch. Well, in this case here, you're breaking down starch in the small intestine. You have trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase. You heard the word pep just then. Anytime we say pep, we're breaking down proteins because peptide bonds are what's found between amino acids. Pancreatic lipase, lipid plus ACE, so lipase digests lipids. And then pancreatic ribonuclease and deoxyribonuclease. And those are there to break down your nucleic acids. Now, when it comes to the juices of the pancreas and what are coming out of here, it's a watery solution, contains the enzymes, obviously, and then several different electrolytes, but like primarily bicarbonate. Remember that when we come out of the stomach, we've got a really low pH, and as soon as we hit the duodenum, we've got to raise that pH so that these enzymes have the optimal environment so that they can do their work. So that's why we use bicarbonate in that case. So now your enzymes are typically released in an inactive form, and they'll become active in the duodenum, and you may or may not see that in your studies. That is the exocrine function. Now, when it comes to the endocrine function, I may not have anything on here. Now, I'll tell you this. It releases insulin and glucagon. Insulin is there to take sugar out of the bloodstream, put it into your cells to get them working, and then it also helps move the sugars across the cell membranes. So if we take sugar out of your bloodstream, if your sugars are way too high, insulin will bring those sugar levels back down. Now, on the opposite side of that, glucagon, if your bloodstream has too little sugar, glucagon is released by the pancreas. That affects the liver because we store sugars as glycogen in the liver, and glucagon acts on those storages to release that glycogen into your bloodstream. So that increases your sugar levels in your bloodstream. So we didn't go over the endocrine system, but if you were to study that, you would spend a fair amount of time studying those two enzymes, or those two from the pancreas. Okay, so basically when it comes to an overview of the pancreas, there's a table in your book, 23.2, but really it comes down to it secretes pancreatic juices that are rich in bicarbonate, and that helps neutralize that acid chyme. And then those pancreatic juices do a nice job of breaking down all your food, what's left in your food. By the way, this picture here, 2327, this just shows everything as it comes in from the pancreas because it's inactive and it becomes activated. That's all it is. So, and then this figure, 2328, just shows how we release it. Okay, and I'll let you look through that. I want to move into the large intestine. The large intestine, you can see here, at the very beginning of the year, I had you study had you learned the different quadrants. Actually, we had the quadrants of the stomach where we divided your abdomen into 4 areas, but there was one we actually did regions, and there were 9 regions. And there was one organ, actually I think there are 2 organs that hit all 9 regions. The small intestine was one, the large intestine was the other. Okay, now the large intestine has some unique features. I don't think any of those are on this picture, so let me jump up one. There we go. The 3 really unique features that make it look different, because if you take these out, then it looks like a really just big version of your small intestine, just shorter. But you have the tinea coli, and these are the bands of longitudinal smooth muscles. See right there? It's probably labeled somewhere. I'm sorry, I'm not looking for it. Yeah, there it is right there. Tinea coli. I knew it'd be on that band somewhere. But anyway, these are bands of smooth longitudinal muscle in the muscularis. And what they do is when they contract, they form these little sacs. And then these sacs are actually called haustra, H-A-U-S-T-R-A. And then the haustra, that's why the large intestine looks so different, because of those sacs. And it all has to do with the tinea coli slightly contracting. So the muscle tone gives you the haustra. Okay, and then after that, so we've got the tinea coli, we've got the haustra, and then we have what are called epiploic appendages, and that are these little fat sacs right there. There's where it's labeled. So, okay, the little appendages coming out. And they really are just fat-filled pouches of the visceral peritoneum. That's all they are. So now, when it comes to your large intestine, we divide this into the cecum. Remember when I was talking about the small intestine, it dumps into the cecum by way of the ileocecal valve, because in the small intestine we come out of the ileum. So here's the ileum here. We go through the ileocecal valve, which is right here, and we dump into the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. While we're down there, you can see your appendix, your variiform appendix. That is lymphatic tissue. Okay, so if you've ever heard about appendicitis, that's the inflammation of this, or the attack by bacteria or whatever on this tissue. So there's your appendix. In case you ever worry about your appendix, right side, if you want to find it, if you put your finger in your belly button and your other hand on your iliac crest, your bones, go halfway between the two, you should be real close to being right over your appendix. Okay, so moving on. So cecum, appendix, and then we get into the colon, and notice we'll break up the colon into a lot of different pieces. Okay, so that's the colon, and then from the colon we make our way all the way down here to the rectum, and then after the rectum, the anal canal. Okay, so those are the subdivisions of the large intestine. But now let's go back and let's look at the colon, because it has distinct regions. First of all, the food's going to come out of the ileum here and dump into the cecum. So now we're starting in the colon. You notice our first part is called the ascending colon. So we're going up. And then up here we've got this, they call it the right colic. I learned this as the hepatic flexure. Remember, hepatic means liver. So your liver's on your right side, stomach's on the left, liver's on the right. So anyway, that's where we get the hepatic flexure, or the right colic flexure. Then after that, we go across in the transverse colon. So far we've had ascending, right colic, transverse, and then over here we've got either the left colic or the splenic flexure. Again, whichever one you would choose is fine. And then after that, we have the descending colon. And then after the descending colon, we have the sigmoid colon. Now, the transverse and the sigmoid portions are anchored through mesenteries. These are called mesocolons. And then the sigmoid colon then joins into the rectum. And then finally we have the anal canal, which is the last part of the large intestine. That opens to the exterior of the anus. When it comes to the microscopic, oh, that's just the mesenteries. Yeah, I don't want to go to any of those yet. So let's just leave it here and say, when it comes to the large intestine, the microscopic anatomy, we look at colon mucosa. That is simple clumber epithelium, except in the anal canal. That's going to be stratified squamous epithelium. But in the colon mucosa, that simple columnar, you're going to have, obviously it's going to be lined with a lot of goblet cells. So a lot of mucus coming out of, especially in the ascending the transverse, the descending. So we're still allowing mucus in there. But at some point, we've got to get that water back. We've got to reclaim it. And we've got cells for that. So the other thing you have is you've got crypts inside here. And I'm sorry I don't have a picture of that, but I showed you a crypt on the small intestine. It's just an indent. In this case, it's in the tissue. So anyway. When it comes to the anal canal itself, this is stratified squamous epithelium, like your skin, like your mouth, because now we're there to pull the mucus back out of the food that we're not eating and to compress it down. So we pull the mucus or the water out of the feces, we compress the feces. That's the whole purpose of the anal canal. Now we get down there on my picture here. Doesn't really show it. Yeah, it does. There we go. Hemorrhoidal veins. You've got this plexus of veins around the anal canal. So when people have hemorrhoids, that's an inflammation of these veins because it's a rich plexus that helps with moving the blood flow. And so that's the whole purpose there. Anyway, other parts of this, we do have rectal valves, which are flaps. Rectal valves allow the feces to go to be held in place, but allow gas to pass by. So, but the whole purpose of this anal canal is simply to propel the fecal matter toward the anus. And that's really it. As far as digestion goes, the whole large intestine, it's not about digestion there. Other than some bacteria, we pull out like vitamins and water, maybe some electrolytes. But otherwise, your large intestine doesn't play a role in digestion. It's essential for comfort, but the colon's not essential for life. So you hear people that have had colon cancer, you can live without a colon. It's not a comfortable way to live, but you can actually do it. Okay. As far as mobility in the large intestine, let's go back up to my first picture here. You have haustral contractions, and that slow segmenting movements that move the content of the colon. The presence of food in the stomach actually activates this gastrocolic reflex. So your large intestine will start reflexing just because you got food in your stomach. And so you get peristaltic waves already, which a little early, but I get that. As far as defecation, you've got two sets of muscles. We have an external anal sphincter right there, and then you have an internal anal sphincter. Actually, this one's a set, and there's the internal there, okay? We have stimulation that contracts the rectal walls. This relaxes the internal anal sphincter, okay? One of these two, and I'll be honest, I'm looking through my notes right now. There it is. Okay, so the internal anal sphincter is smooth muscle. And you know that from this entire year that you're not in control of smooth muscle. So that one, your body just has to release due to something else acting on it. So now the external anal sphincter, that one is skeletal muscle. You are in charge of that one, so you can control that. Most of the time, though, these sphincters are kept closed except during defecation. But just know that you do have a system of two muscles in there, and that's what determines whether or not you defecate or not. Okay, back to these pictures. I keep skipping over these, and all they are is just mesenteries. Mesenteries are these tissues that hold all this stuff together, okay? You've got this is the lesser omentum in this picture here. We can go to the greater omentum. There it is. Okay. But anyway, this mesentery is a very thin tissue that holds your organs in place. If you've ever heard of anyone having a hernia, that is a tear in the mesentery. I've had two of those in my lifetime. I had one of them that was called inguinal. And what that means is down here in the crease of my leg, I had a tear. And so this happened before I was, goodness, I couldn't have been but about first grade when that happened. But anyway, down by my leg, I had this little area that would poop, kind of poof out a little bit here, and showed it to my parents because it was, like I said, just like it was just weird where it was located. And so I went to the hospital, and sure enough, I had a hernia and had to have surgery. And then later, when I was, goodness, probably 40, yeah, 39 or 40, I tore the mesentery above my belly button. And so now when it comes to hernia, what they told me, they were going to do that one laparoscopically, where they'd go in and make the 3 incisions, puff up my abdominal cavity, and then just sew up what they need to sew up. But they looked at me and said it looked like I'd been shot with a shotgun. So they went in and made a big giant hole, put a piece of mesh in, but basically had to sew this tissue back together. In my case, again, the small intestines, if I would bear down like weightlifting, it would actually, it would move out, and then I could literally just push it back in. So weird, strange, but that's what a hernia is in this case. Okay, so that's enough on the mesenteries. Last thing I want to talk about is cancer, and that's just the direction that our book goes. They talk about things like this. When it comes to cancer related to the GI system, you can either have colon, I mean, you can have all sorts, right? I mean, you hear of others, but the big one for us is colon cancer, okay? But you can have stomach or colon, either one. Those two both have really early warning signs, but I don't know them all that much. I can tell you more about colon cancers because once you hit 50, you have to go in for a colonoscopy, which what they're doing then is they're taking a scope up the anal canal into the large intestine and beyond. They're looking for polyps. So polyps are little bumps, and those polyps then can become cancerous. So anyway, stomach, my notes say this: stomach and colon cancers rarely have, oh, I thought they said they do have early warning signs. I always think because we go in for colonoscopy, they're easy to catch. But otherwise, they don't have good warning signs. They metastasize. Colon cancers frequently cause secondary liver cancer. And here's the weird one. And this is one that I still haven't figured out. I've been teaching this class forever, and I've never taken the time to look it up. But prevention of cancers, stomach and colon, is prevented by, I love this one, regular dental checkups. So that's one for you to look up and figure out why or how, because I really don't know. Okay, so regular checkups with your doctor, but then also regular dental checkups will help you prevent colon cancers. Colon cancer is the second largest cancer deaths in males. Lung cancer for males is number 1. I'm sorry, ladies, I don't know where it falls with yours. You know, we always assume that breast cancer is number 1, but I don't know if lung then comes in 3 or 2, and then from there, I don't know. Sorry about that. Anyway, my notes go on to say forms from benign mucosal tumors called polyps, whose formation increases with age, and then regular colon examination should be done for all those over 50. And I will tell you, you're supposed to go in for your first colonoscopy at 50. If that's clean, you don't go back for 10 years. Sorry, I still haven't been in for my first colonoscopy. It doesn't sound fun. So anyway, that is it for the digestive system. So this is video 4. I think we can call it good with that. I think that's it.